We have major updates in the Young Thug trial out of Georgia. Jury selection was delayed for the Grammy-winning rapper, and he now faces new charges, get this, for an alleged drug transaction that occurred in open court. This is surveillance video that was captured yesterday on Wednesday, where we see the defendant. Now, Young Thug is seated. His real name is Jeffrey Lamar Williams, allegedly exchanging an item with one of his co-defendants. The deputies confiscated the item, which was determined to be a Percocet, a narcotic pain reliever. Williams, along with 11 other defendants, are already facing multiple state RICO charges, and the indictment estimates that the group may be responsible for 75 to 80% of the violent crime in Atlanta. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Molly Parmer. So much I want to talk about, but first, let's look at that video together, because you and I have both been in this courtroom. Fulton County's in the middle of Atlanta, Metro City. Let's see if we can watch that together, because you can see he's a co-defendant. He just gets up, Molly. He walks over. He's the one in the blue standing. He hands something to Young Thug. That's who's sitting at that table, and you can see right there he hands it, and Young Thug puts it under the table, and then the co-defendant starts to walk off. And you can see the security immediately walks up, the deputy, and allegedly Young Thug hands whatever it was to the deputy. Now, not surprising to you, Molly, we know that in situations like this, often motions are filed by parties, A, to make a record of it, and B, because they're asking the court for some relief or some result of the motion that they're filing. And we have had access, really breaking news, to two different motions thanks to our court TV team and one of our own legal analysts. We have the state's motion that was filed, as well as we have the motion that was filed by one of the defendants. So let's start with the state's motion. Georgia versus Williams, state motion after this happened yesterday. This is how the state describes it. Williams extended his open right hand toward defendant Adams, who's the one who stood up, the closed right hand, and accepted an item of contraband, to wit, Percocet, from inside defendant Adams' hand. During the search of Adams, the sheriff recovered Percocet, marijuana, tobacco, and other contraband wrapped in plastic and food seasonings to mask the odor of the marijuana. This is according to the state. Also, Adams was then taken to Grady Hospital after he appeared to ingest other items of contraband that he held on his person in an effort to conceal the extent of his crimes within the courtroom. Molly, I'm going to start there. Within the courtroom, open court, deputies, judge on the bench, being videoed, audio, RICO charges in which they face many years in prison. It's kind of unbelievable. What do you first think when you see this as a criminal defense attorney?
I mean, I think exactly what you just said. It's unbelievable, but there we saw it with our own eyes. I mean, it was essentially a hand-to-hand transaction, if it is what the state alleges. And of course, as a defense lawyer, I always have some skepticism, right? So it's interesting to see the motion and hear their version of events. They believe, the prosecution believes, that that was a drug deal done in open court during jury selection.
All right, let me play devil's advocate, because last night is when I first saw this report, and I said, "Ooh, the news gathering, can we find out and verify this?" And our great news gathering team did verify. But they said last night it was Percocet. Now, arguably, the only way you know if it's really Percocet, you're going to have it analyzed by a lab. There's no way between yesterday afternoon and last night that any law enforcement could have it analyzed by a lab. So I also question, like they say it's Percocet, maybe one of them said it was Percocet, but do we even know that for certain yet?
We don't. You can do what's called a field test, an instantaneous test using really simplified equipment when it comes to drug analysis, but you are not going to get actual lab results, which are the appropriate results to get if you are facing new criminal charges, which both of these individuals now are, for violating Georgia Controlled Substances Act.
They now are. So, Sudichata Jimenez, who's one of our legal analysts who represents one of the co-defendants, not either of these. He does not represent Williams or Adams, so neither of the ones involved in this, but he filed a response. And let me just point out a couple of the pieces of his response. So first, here's the co-defendants, one of the co-defendants' response to the state. While in the courtroom, the undersigned attorney, his client, and several other individuals could hear loud banging and yelling coming from the holding area where Mr. Adams was being held. And what he says in the earlier part of his motion is Mr. Adams was taken by deputies into the holding area. On or about 12:15 p.m., the defendants were brought back out, except for Mr. Adams, who was transported to Grady Hospital. Now remember, the state says that's because he had ingested other contraband. However, here in this motion by a co-defendant, the state has deliberately published their version of the allegations by filing a motion with the narrative of what they claim took place, knowing that the filing would be disseminated by various media sources and this potentially poisoning the jury pool. End of the day, caused a delay. Should this jury be excused in the last 10 seconds? This jury pool.
This jury absolutely should be excused. If they witness this banging and all of these sounds coming back from the holding cell, yes, they should.
I absolutely agree with you. I would do the same thing were I on the bench.